Sally Morgan is passionate about people and relationships. She's a third-party mediator. Sally's goal at Vive Mediation is getting people to better understand how to communicate and relate to others, from separation and divorces to elder mediation to workplace mediation. Sally believes in growing from experience and offering meaningful strategies that can be used in all areas of one's life. Get more at vivemediate.com or even Vive. I will get it right. Don't worry, Sally. I'll correct that. It is Dan Pollard along with Scott Campsall, and it is time for Wellness Wednesday. And Sally Morgan from Vive Mediation is joining us. Good morning, Sally.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. I'm feeling really good. Maybe it's only for this week, but usually I'm always working the phones and having to coordinate the merge call. So I think this is how you get promoted. This is
a promotion.
Yeah. You didn't have to do that today. Oh,
yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're very nice. Well, see, the thing is, and I do always ask you, Sally, I do apologize, but it's spelled V-I-V-E. And but it is Vive. As long as they know it's V-I-V-E, they'll be able to get in contact with you, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about it. We talked a month ago, and we were discussing, the pandemic and the stresses on people. Obviously, what was happening before the pandemic would continue during the pandemic, and in some cases, it is at a higher level. But there are sometimes issues within families. One sibling has an idea, another one has another idea, and they're often parents who are involved in the middle as they start to age and you start to draw plans for the future. Do you find that numbers are still rising, or are you expecting numbers to rise as we start to come out of the pandemic?
Oh, certainly. The numbers are going to be rising as we come out of the pandemic. I think people have just been coasting through and trying to do what they need to do in the meantime. The issues have been there. But post-pandemic, I think one of the leading issues will be finding long-term care alternatives or situations that work for the entire family. There will be a reluctance, I think, for many seniors wanting to go into long-term care. And so finding suitable arrangements within the family or encouraged by the extended family so that the senior feels that they're going to be in a solid situation as they age.
Now, because of the pandemic, do you find, or have you heard more of an issue of people just being stressed out amongst the siblings more than even the parent?
Yes, we've heard that. I mean, this has been
like a perspective changing because of what's happened during the pandemic, and I guess in that isolation.
I think what's happened, Dan, is that so many of us have been involved in our own bubble, and we've been absorbed by our own issues within families. Immediate families, and not always comprehending what's been going on in other households. So as we're starting to come out, we're kind of catching up with some of the stresses that others have been experiencing, and we may have been on the tail end of receiving that stress through communication or just an absence of people being available to help out. So when we come into this other side of the situation, we have all this relatively recent stress from the whole family that's now under the magnifying glass. So, where do we go from here? Who takes the lead in here? Who's borne the brunt of the pandemic within the family? It's an interesting thing to see. Over the years of working in law offices, I've always seen aging as having problems, just making decisions and such, and giving care and mental health and a variety of issues.
So as a mediator, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, sorry.
On an ongoing situation, but now it's catch-up time.
So as a mediator, you're exposed to a few of these situations. Is there a point where you can give advice or maybe give some different ideas as to how to handle the situation, or are you basically more of a facet for these people to work out their own concepts and their own advice or their own ideas?
That's a good question. So obviously from a legal advice point of view, no, we cannot give legal advice. But generating options for the families to think through and generate possibilities for solutions. Absolutely. It's not just communication. We're so familiar with the realm of aging. We have a lot of resources at hand, and we have many resources that we can provide to families so that they can get the help that they need as well.
Well, tell us about the Elder Mediation Pilot Project, because this is something that is very timely in coming out of the pandemic. And there are some people who are economically stretched, maybe because their jobs were on hold or they lost their jobs and would think about mediation, but maybe, because of the costing, they wouldn't get involved. And this is something that they may be able to get involved with. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, Dan, there is no financial criteria required for this pilot project. The Ontario Association for Family Mediation came up with this pilot project. We sat down as a board earlier this year and wanted to kind of bring a project to the public, helping or assisting families in finding alternatives to work through issues surrounding aging. So the pilot project was launched. It goes until the deadline is March 31st of next year. And we're really looking to help families in Ontario. There is no area situation that we can't address. Providing them with 10 hours per family of free mediation and it's being provided by accredited family and elder mediators.
That's important, though, that word accreditation, right?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a high process that we have to go through in order to be skilled and trained to be able to give the information and to be able to facilitate safely the families.
Yeah, because I think every family has people with lots of opinions, and they're not necessarily accredited.
Check out Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, no, the whole point of the pilot project is really just so people understand that there are alternatives. You don't have to live in those situations. You can get help. But very often, where do people turn to for help? And sadly, many times it's going through a legal system and litigation, which splits up families and siblings. So by bringing mediation into the forum, it's an opportunity for families to come together and resolve those differences. And it's never just one issue. Never just one issue. We may think it is, that's what the problem is, but there's usually several other things lurking under the surface. So having a trained and skilled mediator helping them through to figure out what the situation is. And 10 hours is quite a significant amount of time for families to sit down and be able to search for a solution.
What are telltale signs where would you say, oh, you know what, you need a mediator? Because I know, I've had situations with family members and you argue back and forth, but it eventually gets resolved. Or right now you can argue back and forth with a family member and we just go accept it and go, well, that's their opinion and this is mine. And then you don't talk for months. And so where would you say, okay, you probably should get some help working this out?
That's a good question. And I always look to listen for when I hear people say, well, I probably wouldn't tell them this, or it's that lack of communication which actually builds positions and perspectives, right? So not knowing what's going on in that other person's mind, but you're presuming that they're acting or that they're doing something which is not of benefit, I think that's the first step. So listening, I listen for that conversation. If someone's saying, I think, or I don't know what they're thinking, or I don't know what to do with this, but such and such always behaves a certain way. And if it's to the detriment of the family, yeah.
So you're not just a conduit?
No, absolutely not.
From one side to the other. How difficult is it? And, in talking to therapists over the years, and mediation's a little different, but I would think it plays part of it as well, in being able to step back and not have any biases. Or is it a situation where you go, oop, my own personal bias, whatever it be, may be creeping in here and I have to step back and approach this a little differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're actually trained for that, even though we say it's a non-biased opinion, it's a non-biased approach. Everyone comes in with some kind of bias within.
Last I looked, you're human, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of trained. There's a process we go through. Before we mediate, I go through a system where I'm understanding and meeting with the individuals, and that's part of my process, is to deal with that through my own experiences. And then post-mediation session, we do a reflective practice as well. And so it's very interesting when you process that information and get beyond a bias, let's say, or deal with that own particular bias within ourselves so that you come to the table a better mediator each time.
So do you pool together with other mediators, like at the end of maybe not at the end of a session, but maybe, like just either get together and just say, well, you know what, I had this case and how would you have handled it? Or did you have people that you go to for advice?
Oh, absolutely. The Ontario Association for Family Mediation, we do these weekly meetups in any case, mediation matters. And so we have that once a week for an hour, and we very often bring those situations there. I mean, there's such a pool of resources and knowledge and experience that we come from. Ontario is a huge place, and we've got so much diversity going on, and there's always someone that has something to help you better be equipped for the next session that you have. It's a wonderful resource for us.
So if someone is interested, either in just talking to you or taking part in the Elder Mediation Pilot Project, how can they do that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. My role this morning is not really for, I can talk about all day what I do, but I really wanted to get the word out there about this pilot project because I sincerely believe and know that there are many families out there that need that help and they just don't know where to go. So what I would suggest is you can email at support@oafm.on.ca. You can register at 1-844-989-3026. And if you reach the Ontario Association for Family Mediation, speak to the support person there. They will then take the information and start that process to see if your case is something that can be mediated, and they will get you someone within Ontario that will be able to facilitate for you.
Are there cases where you just go, no mas, can't do it, sorry, gone too far?
No, even, it's a tricky one, but domestic violence, even, judges are even seeing now that there's a case for where there's been domestic violence that they can still be safely mediated. We're so trained in that area of understanding the signs prior to and being aware on an ongoing basis of what we need to look for.
Right.
So
Ontario Association of Family Mediation, though, that's the
Ontario Association for Family Mediation, OAFM.
Oh, 4, right.
Yeah.
Well, Sally, it's a fascinating conversation. It's another one of those ones that people, maybe it's in the background and they're going, we're not quite sure and things aren't going so well in the family. And, anxieties have been ratcheted up during this pandemic. And you hit on that key point, I think, at the beginning, talking about long-term care health facilities and whether or not it's a parent, a sibling, worried about that and some of the dynamics that can present within a family. If you need somebody to talk to, this is the place to go.
I think the fact that your field is so vast, like normally you think about mediators and you think about maybe, unions and bosses, or you think about divorces, but you don't, obviously there's so much more than
family.
That. Yeah.
No, it's a fascinating field. I mean, it covers, issues from driving issues, caregiving, health, long-term care, finances, medical decision-making, property issues. Does mom or dad stay in the home? Do they need to move? What supports do they need? So many of these issues that we face within families day to day.
Sally, it's a fascinating topic. We want to thank you for taking time to talk to us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you both.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That is Sally Morgan from Vive Mediation. And again, the website to check out, the Ontario Association